Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video. In this one, I'm going to show you how the low-life meta hybrid build actually works. Not really a build per se, but a defensive mechanic or approach that you can utilize for a variety of different builds. Personally, I believe this is an insanely good way to play the game. I've been doing a lot in my Dark Pact build. There's a link in the description to that build again if you want to check it out. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's using the new Petrified Blood skill and a few other quirks that I'm going to show you here in the game. Let's just go right into it. So the way this defensive mechanic works is that we are going to be using Petrified Blood. Now, Petrified Blood is not really an aura, but at the same time it is. It's a spell that allows you to enable the actual ability, but it still has a reservation cost. Now, this can be brought down through reservation reducing effects or skill tree nodes, for example, or modifiers in your gear. So the way this works is that it will make your HP half, and then any damage that you take when you are on low life, which is when you're 50% HP or below, will then take away 40% of all damage that you take in terms of hits. And then it will degenerate your HP with a percent of that HP over the course of the next 4 seconds. Now, what's really cool when it comes to this type of mechanic is the fact that you can have pain attunement into this build. So in this case, I have spec pain attunement because we are always in the state of low life. With this approach and on the specific build that I'm playing, we can then have 30% more spell damage and still not lose out on the defensive gains of what this build provides you. Now, when it comes to Petrified Blood, the mitigated damage is 40% of all damage hits that you take that happens when you're on low life, which means 50% or below. The percent of that damage that you mitigated that then is then degenerated goes from 100% at level 1, but goes down to 81% or something like that at level 20. So you actually mitigate entirely a percent of this damage, and the rest is degenerated on yourself after that. And you can use increased quality. For example, on the baseline, it increases the life loss prevented over the next 4 seconds. And if you use something like an anomalous Petrified Blood, you actually take more damage per second over the degenerated effect, but it also mitigates a higher percent of your damage. So in this case, I am mitigating 45% of all incoming damage, but instead of mitigating actual damage, I am taking a larger portion of that damage over time per second. Now, this is not a problem, which is so cool when it comes to this ability or this type of approach with the defense. Because here's the deal. When you play the game and you have half HP, what happens is you can never go above half HP unless you're in a position where you're using Flasks, because that is the only way you can go above half HP. So if I were to use a Flask to go above HP, what happens with Petrified Blood is that it puts a life cost equal to 40% of my mana cost of those abilities when I'm not on low life. So if I use a life flask, I can bump myself above 50% HP, but all my abilities will start to have a life cost to it. And any leech mechanic I have will not work because I am not able to be above 50% life unless it's with a flask. So to show you this, I'm going to Dark Pact my HP down to 50%.
I need more mana.
So as you can see here, my life regen is actually kicking in, so now I'm regenerating HP. If I were to use the life flask once, as you can see, I'm now above 50% of my life pool, but because of this, I don't have any more life regen. And suddenly, if I hover over my Dark Pact, for example, it has a mana cost of 68, but also 27 HP. Same thing with my skeletons. It's going to cost me 13 HP to cast my skeletons. So that's basically how it works. So I'm going to bring myself down to below 50% HP, and you'll see that my life regen starts kicking in again. So there's a couple different ways of approaching this. One is obviously being able to use a Panic Divine Life Flask. So when I feel that, hey, I'm going to need more HP, then you can pop that flask, but then I don't get the benefits of the Pain Attunement Keystone. So I've decided in this higher budget version of this build to not use a Life Flask. So how does this work for the sake of a hybrid leeching overpowered meta kind of approach? And this is simple. When you're playing a build that has any source of life leech, such as the Hunter influenced amulet with chaos damage leeches life on a dark pack build, because we need chaos damage leeches life on this build. There are delve drop rings, there's Doriana's invitation belt, for example, which drops from Atsiri. So there's a couple of different variations of gear pieces you can use, and in a lower budget approach of this build specifically, you can use the life leech support in a Tabula Rasa or a corrupted 6-link, whatever you're playing with, just to get that life leech. What then happens is that you're going to be leeching HP. So in my case, my life is capped at 1,777. That's a nice number. So what happens then is that since I cannot leech above 50%, I will then create an overleech situation. This means that I am leeching HP, but because of Petrified Blood, prevented from going above 50%. This means that my leech never stops. Even if my HP stops going up after 50%, it never stops. So when something like the degen effect from Petrified Blood kicks in, where I'm now taking damage from the damage I was mitigating, or if I'm taking corrupted blood effects, bleeding, having poison stacks on me, all of those damages is completely mitigated by the fact that I am now leeching, over-leeching that damage. So even if I take damage over time, I still remain at 50% HP because I'm leeching it. This then allows us to utilize other mechanics such as Light Eater as well as Ethereal Feast. These are the two major energy shield leeching mechanics, or skill tree nodes on the skill tree. There are other nodes such as Soul Thief, giving you a little bit of spell damage, leeches energy shield. But what's important to note when it comes to Light Eater is not just the spell damage leeches energy shield, but also the maximum total energy shield recovery per second from leech, as well as you get increased damage while on full energy shields. It's pretty juicy. So you get some increased leech based on your percent damage dealt, but most importantly, the total recovery per second is the big fact of this. And that's why also we take the right-hand side from Ethereal Feast, because we get another couple of percent into increased total recovery. There's another approach of using Watcher's Eye Jewels, for example, that gives you energy shield for each enemy hit, which is incredibly good as well. So I'm going to show you a quick map so you can see how the leech works in this build. We can do a Phoenix map, I guess, just to show you the approach of how amazing this defensive mechanic is. Normally, this build has been played with in the form of Immortal Ambition, which we got through the Soul Tether belt in the past, which gave us that the life leech does not stop, and allowed us to move leeching over to energy shield. But it also made us start on 0 energy shield, whereas this approach allows us to consistently be full energy shield at all times, so to say. So as you can see on my life pool, or my life bubble right now, you see that this little part of the build is now red, and now it went down, and that's my overleeching stopping. So this little window here, as you can see, will turn a little bit transparent red color. That is leech happening, and it is not doing anything to my HP because it is literally overleeching, but I cannot go above 50%. So anytime I take damage over time, that pool is going to be taken away from, which is really cool to see. Another mechanic is to see, let me see if I can take some damage so you can see the mitigated damage. Sometimes you'll see my HP in the middle there turn into 2 different shades of red. The darker one is the damage that I'm degenerating, and you can see how the HP is going up. That's because of the leeching mechanic that we're using for this specific build. It's a bit messy. There is a downside to this though, and I will mention it. For those of you who've seen me play this build on stream, have actually seen me die a few times because of this, and it is a very frustrating downside. It's not a super big one. I'd still say that this mechanic is insanely good, but the problem is, as you can see, that my HP is half at all times. Now, if I'm taking damage such as chaos, which bypasses my energy shield, I'll actually be in a situation where this type of damage is bypassing the energy shield. And if I don't have enough chaos rest, for example, in this version, I don't have too much chaos rest, I'll actually be in a position where my half HP pool will degen rather fast. And that's normally not a problem, right? However, when you have Petrified Blood, your full HP is half your HP, and the problem is seeing that you're taking damage over time. First off, the debuffs or degen debuffs is up here in the top left corner, and your life pool is on the bottom left. You can see it on your above the bars on the top of your character if you have that enabled like me. However, you have an energy shield pool covering that HP, so it can be very hard to see if you're losing HP rapidly or not before you actually die. This is mostly noticeable for me, at least in fights like Sirius himself. It's been frustrating to die with that when you're about to level for softcore, even more in hardcore, I imagine, obviously. But all I'm saying is that that is the biggest downside to this defensive mechanic. But as you can see here in the ultimatums, the build is literally just stomping the content, but that has more to do with the build, but the defensive mechanic is there. As you can see, the leech is just consistently overleeching, but I'm always remaining in a low life state. So I'm going to try not to keep this video too long, so we're just going to rush to the boss so you guys can see how the defensive mechanic will feel when I'm taking damage. I'm going to try to take a few hits without just getting myself one shot versus this boss. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll die, but I think it's good to show you guys the defensive mechanic of this. I'm going to try to incorporate this in more than this build, because I think the defensive mechanism or design of this build is just so cool in the game right now. So let's see if we can take a few hits here. Can I take some damage? I don't think I can survive that, but we'll see. No, I could. So there you see the HP is getting up from the side. As I'm taking a damage, the Petrified Blood has already mitigated a portion of that damage. It is now currently degenning my HP, and that is being directly mitigated by me having a overleech state so that I can then leech energy shield. I think it's cool. I love it. I think it's amazing. It's literally one of the best and most broken defensive layers I've ever had on a build since Immortal Ambition got nerfed. I absolutely love it. Anyways, boys, let me know if you have any other approaches that you've been using Petrified Blood for in this hybrid defensive mechanic. Let me know in the comments below. And till next time, boys, hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time.